When Queen Elizabeth II passed away in September 2022, the world mourned the loss of Britain's longest-reigning monarch. Tributes poured in from every corner of the globe, world leaders gathered for her funeral, and millions watched as history unfolded. Yet amid the grandeur of state ceremonies and constitutional transitions, many people found themselves asking a surprisingly tender question: what would happen to her beloved Corgis? For more than 7 decades, the Queen's small, energetic dogs had been her constant companions. They trotted beside her in palace corridors, appeared in official photographs, and even featured in that unforgettable 2012 Olympic sketch with James Bond. To understand what happened to the Queen's final 2 Corgis after Prince Andrew took them in, it's important to understand just how deeply intertwined these dogs were with her life and identity. The Queen's love of Corgis began in 1944, when she was just 18 years old and received a Pembroke Welsh Corgi named Susan as a birthday gift. Susan wasn't simply a pet, she became the foundation of a royal canine dynasty. Over the course of her reign, the Queen owned more than 30 Corgis and Dorgis, many descended directly from Susan. The dogs were famously devoted to her and reportedly had free rein in royal residences, from Buckingham Palace to Windsor Castle and Balmoral. They were known to nip at the heels of guests and staff, but the Queen adored them. In later years, however, she made the difficult decision to stop breeding Corgis. According to those close to her, she did not want to leave behind young dogs without her. That decision made the arrival of 2 new Corgis late in her life particularly poignant. In 2021, during a deeply stressful period when Prince Philip was hospitalized and the Queen was facing increasing health challenges, Prince Andrew and his daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, gifted her a Corgi puppy named Muick. The puppy reportedly lifted her spirits during an anxious time. Not long after, another Corgi named Sandy joined the household. The Queen quickly formed a strong bond with both dogs. They were frequently seen at Windsor Castle, where she spent much of her final years, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. By the time of her death at Balmoral Castle on September 8, 2022, Muick and Sandy were her last surviving Corgis, making them symbols of the end of an era. Almost immediately after her passing, attention turned to the future of the dogs. Within days, it was confirmed that Prince Andrew and his ex-wife, Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, would take custody of Muick and Sandy. The decision seemed logical on several fronts. Andrew had helped acquire the dogs in the first place, and despite his deeply controversial public standing, he had remained close to his mother. He lived at Royal Lodge in Windsor Great Park, not far from Windsor Castle, and the estate's expansive grounds were well suited for energetic Corgis. Sources described the move as Andrew honoring a promise to care for his mother's beloved pets. For a brief moment, the story offered a note of warmth amid national grief. However, Prince Andrew's personal circumstances added complexity to the situation. By the time he assumed care of the Corgis, he had already stepped back from royal duties and been stripped of his military titles and patronages following the fallout from his association with Jeffrey Epstein and the civil sexual assault case he later settled in the United States. Although he remained a member of the royal family, his public role was significantly diminished. King Charles III's succession to the throne brought renewed scrutiny to Andrew's living arrangements at Royal Lodge, a 30-room mansion he leased from the Crown Estate. Reports circulated that the king wished to slim down royal expenditures and potentially relocate Andrew to a smaller residence, possibly Frogmore Cottage. As speculation mounted about whether Andrew would remain at Royal Lodge, observers began to wonder what such changes might mean for Muick and Sandy. In the months following the Queen's funeral, Muick and Sandy settled into life at Royal Lodge with Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. Although divorced since 1996, Andrew and Sarah continued to live together at the estate, maintaining an unusually amicable relationship. Sarah, in particular, spoke openly about caring for the dogs. In interviews, she described walking them daily and keeping up the routines the Queen had established. She even made emotional remarks suggesting that the late monarch's presence could still be felt through the Corgis. For her, looking after them was more than a practical responsibility, it was a way of preserving a connection to the Queen. The dogs reportedly adapted well to their new environment, enjoying the sprawling grounds and maintaining good health. Public glimpses of Muick and Sandy provided reassurance to royal watchers. They were photographed being walked near Windsor, sometimes alongside Andrew. During the Queen's funeral procession, images of the Corgis waiting at Windsor Castle as her coffin passed became some of the most poignant of the entire period of mourning. The sight of the small dogs, seemingly unaware of the historical gravity yet embodying a deeply personal loss, resonated around the world. In that moment, they represented the private side of a monarch who had so often been defined by public duty. As time went on, reports about Andrew's housing situation continued to surface. Discussions about the lease and maintenance costs of Royal Lodge fueled speculation that he might eventually relocate. If that were to happen, many assumed the Corgis would move with him. Others suggested they could remain on a royal estate under the care of another family member, such as Princess Beatrice or Princess Eugenie. However, no official statement ever indicated that the dogs would leave Andrew's care. Instead, palace sources consistently maintained that the Corgis would remain within the family. Occasional reports in 2025 and 2026 even mentioned sightings of the dogs at Sandringham during royal gatherings, suggesting they might travel with Andrew or spend time on other estates while still remaining part of the royal household. Despite sensational headlines that sometimes implied uncertainty or upheaval, there has been no credible evidence that Newick and Sandy were ever at risk of being rehomed outside the royal family. The Queen had been meticulous in her personal planning, and those close to her have indicated that she wanted her dogs to be well cared for by people she trusted. Andrew, whatever his public controversies, was someone she loved deeply. In taking in the Corgis, he assumed a role that was both practical and symbolic. The dogs became a living link to his mother, a reminder of her private warmth amid the turbulence of his own public life. For many members of the public, the fate of the Corgis mattered because they were more than pets, they were part of the Queen's identity. Her affection for them humanized her. Photographs of her smiling as the dogs gathered around her showed a side of the monarch that transcended politics and protocol. In a reign defined by duty and restraint, the Corgis represented joy and companionship. Their continued presence within the royal fold offered a sense of continuity at a time of immense change. The transition from Queen Elizabeth II to King Charles III marked the end of an extraordinary chapter in British history. Amid debates about modernization and the monarchy's future, the quiet daily routine of walking two Corgis on Windsor's lawns felt reassuringly familiar. Today, Newick and Sandy are understood to be living comfortably under the care of Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson. They enjoy the open spaces of royal estates and the attention of a family accustomed to caring for animals. While the intense media focus has faded, the dogs remain gentle reminders of a monarch who cherished them. Their story, though small in the context of global events, carries emotional weight. In the end, what really happened to the Queen's Corgis after Andrew got them is not a tale of scandal or abandonment. It is a story of continuity, loyalty, and the enduring bond between a woman and her dogs. Through changing headlines, shifting residences, and evolving royal roles, Newick and Sandy continue to live quietly within the royal family's embrace, embodying a final, affectionate connection to Queen Elizabeth II's remarkable life.